this is not a class. This is not a webinar. This is not a lecture. It's not a workshop. It's not even LSAT related. And I'm no more qualified to run this session than any of you. The only reason I'm running this session is because I have the platform and I'm the one who brought everyone together tonight. But what we're going to do here is something completely different, something I'm experimenting with and is totally outside my comfort zone. As you know, my focus is the LSAT, it's law school admissions, a very left-brained and logical kind of thing. But I've come to realize over the years that so much of succeeding on the LSAT and succeeding through this whole process and not getting discouraged to keep that motivation going actually relates to the right brain, the rational, the creative, the emotional. And it's easy to get discouraged in general. The LSAT's difficult enough, but especially during this unique time in 2020 with COVID and Black Lives Matter and protests and police brutality and awareness of all that, there's a lot going on that can help folks feel discouraged sometimes. And I've certainly seen that with the students I work with in my courses. So I thought it would be useful to create a new kind of format on the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel and podcast, a format where we can simply share stories and experiences related to overcoming obstacles and really just related to any of the things at all we're facing in our lives or have faced up to this point, just to get a better understanding of who we all are and where we're coming from, both to better understand each other and also to better understand ourselves. I mean, at least for me, I've personally found a lot of value in talking through my thought process, whether it's on the LSAT or anything else. And to have a space where you can share with others who you don't know in your personal life, you can sometimes feel a little bit more free to be open. You know, there are things you can't say to your family that you could say to a complete stranger. And there's a certain amount of freedom in that. And so I'm personally along this journey and trying to get more comfortable with talking about myself and my personal experiences. I feel like I talk so much about the LSAT and barely ever let my personality or my background show at all. And I think that there could be a value in just letting you all get to know me a little bit better. And I'd love to get to know all of you a little bit better as well. So I'm going to just establish a few ground rules for the evening I'd like to ask all of you to agree to as well, just so we can make sure we're all on the same page here. And so first off, I want to ask all of you to agree to hide nothing and hold nothing back. The only way we can get the full value out of this session is if we're selfish in a way. And we say exactly what we want to say, exactly what we need to say without fear of judgment or ridicule. And I will establish a space here where there's no responding and no piggybacking. And so you can just say what you want to say and be heard and be witnessed. So I'm going to ask all of you to just type in the chat or raise your hand if you can agree to hide nothing and hold nothing back. Can we all agree to that? Awesome. Thank you. Next, I'm going to ask no piggybacking and no responding. And that's the reason for that is that let's say I say something and someone else says, oh, like Steve was saying, I had this similar thing too. You might not have actually understand what I meant when I was saying what I was saying. Sometimes our words don't reflect our emotions or our experiences. And so just so as not to impose our own understanding on somebody else, that's a ground rule as well. So no piggybacking and no responding. Can we all agree to that? Either type in the chat or just raise your hand. Excellent. Thank you. And finally, we're here not to be in problem-solving mode or trying to explain anything. The idea here is simply to share our experiences and let the insights come. It may come while you're sharing it. It may come in an hour, a day, a week later, maybe even longer. But it's not the time to try and figure it out with a formula. This is really the experiential, emotional side. And so just to share your story, let it sit, and see what comes from that. Can we all agree to that as well? Just raise your hand, thumbs up. Chat, awesome. All right, so the format here, let's see, we've got a good number of folks here. I'm going to say, let's do 5-minute shares. So we'll each go around, we'll just share for 5 minutes, a story, an experience, an insight related to something on overcoming obstacles is the theme, but it's really about just whatever you feel the need to share. So let's do 5-minute shares. You'll have up to 5 minutes, and I'll act as facilitator here. And so I'll stick to 5 minutes for myself. I've got a timer here, and I'll ask all of you to stick to 5 minutes as well, although I don't expect you to time yourselves. If you're running a bit over, I will jump in and ask you to wrap it up. And that's not meant out of malice or to shut you down. It's simply to respect the time and ensure that we all have an equal opportunity to speak here. So can we all agree to that as well? Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna jump in and share my story. All right, so this is a story that I've been really uncomfortable sharing for a very long time. I haven't shared it at all in my professional life or publicly, but I feel the need to. And part of that is I want to come from a place of what would it take to get me canceled? And the reason for that is somebody tried to cancel me 6 or 8 weeks ago, and it was a really rough week. And I got past it, but all the hate mail was, obviously discouraging and depressing. And so I wanted to put myself in a place where I could be cancel proof and I could just share the biggest fear I have that people could find out about me. And if I could share that, then I would feel invulnerable because I've shared that and I'm still here. So here's my share. Growing up, my parents always really placed a huge importance on me going to an Ivy League school. It was burnt into me from a very, very young age. Like elementary school, middle school, I had to go to an Ivy, and it was really all prestige. I didn't even know which Ivy. I had no clue which one. And obviously there's a wide variety there. So I gave school my all. I learned my exams. I did well in school. I was top 10 in my class, and I got into Columbia, and I thought I had it made. I was there. I loved being away from home. I loved being in the big city, and I socialized all the time. I was turning in my assignments last minute, but still doing pretty well despite that. Sophomore year, I was even on student government. I was super involved in the extracurriculars. The academics, I did not take full advantage of at all, but I still did okay. I held a party in my room one night, and we got wasted. Jello shots, drank way too much, lost control. We were behaving very foolishly, and we accidentally started a fire in the air shaft of the building. And this was a party I was hosting in my dorm room. So, of course, when the fire marshals came, whose door did they knock on? Who did they investigate? They found me. And I was a participant. I'm not going to lie about that. I was there. I wasn't just holding the party. I was participating as well. Long story short, I ended up getting suspended from college for 2 years. They decided to make an example out of me. And obviously what I did was bad. I'm not discounting that, but there were people who did far worse who weren't suspended for quite as long. But I'm not going to argue that. Bottom line is I did something bad. It was foolish. It was reckless. I got suspended from college for 2 years. The rug was completely pulled out from under me. And I had no idea what I was going to do then. Luckily, they said after 2 years, you can come back. But when you went directly from high school to college, it's like you're on a clearly defined path. Everything has a next logical step. Maybe I was going to go into academia and get a PhD. Maybe I was going to go to law school. I wasn't entirely sure, but this was definitely not part of the plan. So the fact that I was kicked out of school for at least two years, I could come back though, but I was like disconnected from all my friends. I wasn't allowed to set foot on campus. When I came back, if I was going to come back, I wasn't allowed to even live in the dorm. So I was socially isolated, and socializing was enormously important to me at that time, more so than even the academics. And so I felt like my life was over. Everybody knew. Some people didn't even want to associate with me because maybe they wanted to run for office, and I was like a bad association of some kind. So that really sucked. And I didn't know what to do with myself. That was actually when I started studying for the LSAT because I had the free time. I also had $20,000 in legal fees my parents had laid out for me that I also had to pay back to them. So that was looming over my head. And obviously I was very lucky to have them supporting me. Had I been under different circumstances, it could have turned out far worse in that case. I ended up simply with an adjournment and contemplation of dismissal, meaning that if I stayed out of trouble for 6 months, my record would be sealed and maybe nobody would ever know about this and I would get to go back to college and such. So obviously I stayed out of trouble. I kept my nose clean for those 6 months and beyond. And I ended up going back to college and finishing off my remaining 2 years in 1 year because I just wanted to get back to the real world. But those 2 years were absolute hell for me, just simply feeling aimless and not knowing what I was going to do with myself during that period, feeling like I had all that wasted time. So I studied for the LSAT, took it, started teaching it. As you know, I ended up getting a 175, and I ended up not even going to law school after all that. And that's the funny thing. I ended up having this very roundabout path where maybe I was going to be on a clear route to law school or academia or something of that nature, but I ended up tutoring and loving that. And when I came back to school for that final year, I took tons of classes loaded up and still focused on tutoring. And so when it came time to graduate, I was like, well, I love tutoring. I'll just keep doing that. And then I built the blog and later the YouTube channel and the podcast and such. And that was my path. And so that's my story. That's really what I had to share. I'm not going to reflect on it or try to explain. It is what it is. Elisa, would you like to share? Alyssa, sorry.
Hey. Okay, great. I'll just share my story then. So from a really young age, I was raised in a very intense household. My sister and I, we used to call it strict. But now that I'm getting older, I realize that strict was really a euphemism. There was just a lot of physical violence and mental violence that was going on. My parents raised themselves out of poverty, and we were raised in a middle class, a mostly Caucasian suburban neighborhood, and therefore there's a lot of pressure put on us to be perfect, to not become a negative racial stereotype as like a Hispanic woman. Also from a very young age, I had this like instinctual connection to dance. And so by the time I was 8 years old, the way I was going to get out of this place was to move to Los Angeles and become a professional dancer. I was like, I'm going to get out of my house. I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to move. I'm from Texas. So by the time I was 9 years old, I had created nutrition plans for myself, exercise plans for myself, from books that I found in my elementary school library. I stopped going to birthday parties. I stopped taking vacations. And I basically created this life for myself. I would get out of school. I would make straight A's in school, make my parents, happy. And I would get out of school and I would assist the younger dance classes from say 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., take my classes from 6 to 8 p.m. And I wasn't old enough yet, but I would sit and I would watch the older kids' classes from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And I did this every day, Saturdays and Sundays. I would stay all day to try to get out of my house more, and also to be a professional dancer. So I did it, and I was accepted to school in California near Los Angeles. I studied dance, and when I came out of school, I was offered a position as a principal dancer with a full-time dance company. And I was offered this position as a principal dancer, and I became a principal dancer, a principal tap dancer, classically trained and everything else too. But the problem was I had $30,000 in student loan debt, $30,000 in credit card debt, and my pay for being a dancer is $400 a week. And that's with a 40-hour job of rehearsals, and then plus training, paying out of pocket for my own health insurance, paying out of pocket for physical therapy. If you're injured or anything, all of it just comes back on me. So I started learning how to become a housekeeper. I learned how to clean homes off of YouTube, and started to do that in order to pay off what I needed to pay off. And that's when I realized that my adult values weren't lining up with what my adult life was looking like. I'm passionate about social justice and making the world a better place. And when I was on this hamster wheel and dancing all the time and cleaning houses and trying to survive myself, I realized like my time and my energy wasn't really helping anybody. I couldn't volunteer my time. I was calling representatives, writing emails, trying to go to protests, and you can't do that when you can't feed yourself. I couldn't do that. Sorry, I don't want to speak for anybody else. I couldn't do it. I didn't have the time or the energy, and I didn't have the money. In terms of like trying to create like a dance show for like benefit, dancers already don't have a lot of time and a lot of money, and to put them in that resource was never working out for me. So I just decided I needed to basically prove to myself that I needed to just rewire, and start studying. And the LSAT brings me so much joy, which sounds really weird. It's also extremely lonely, which is why I'm here. But I found myself here with COVID back at my parents' house, and physical violence is back with COVID. So I'm losing track of days and weeks. And so I keep telling myself that if I've done it once before, being such a little girl, I don't know how she did it, but she did it. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to do that again. And that's it.
Thank you for sharing. Hamim, would you like to share?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, so my journey of coming to US is really interesting. So my parents were on an employment visa in '96, and I was born here. But they took me back to Pakistan. That's where I have been living for the past 18 years. So right after high school, I decided to come back to US to pursue my higher education because I really wanted to make use of my citizenship. And I was like, let me make use of that. So I came all by myself in 2015. I started working in Subway. It was very difficult because I was all pampered back home. I never did anything by myself, and just adapting myself to a new situation was very interesting. And I used to work 35 hours a week being a full-time student, and I opted for economics as my undergraduate major. The entire journey has been very difficult because my parents didn't get a visa to US while I was doing my undergrad. So I didn't see my family for like straight 3 years because I used to work during summers. I was taking care of myself financially and was not feasible for me to pay $1,000 to see my family because the ticket was really expensive. My parents couldn't attend my graduation because they didn't get a visa. So I was all by myself because I have no family in US. I've been living in a private dorm off campus. So that has been my undergraduate. And right after, so going to law school and pursuing a legal career has always been my dream. And I have also, the video that I issued to Steve for the scholarship thing, it actually defines all the reasons as to why I always wanted to pursue a legal profession. But I think somewhere my priorities kind of changed because I wanted to get some financial stability. So right after graduation, I looked for a job because initially my plan was to go straight to a law school after graduation. But then I realized in my senior year that it's not possible because going from one school and then going on, like right away going to another school for 4 years, I knew that I'm going to bombard my family with a lot of financial burden and I didn't want to do that. So I started looking for jobs and that's what I'm doing. And this COVID happened. I haven't been getting jobs and my track of actually preparing for LSAT has been a little bit off track because a lot of people suggested me that I should take tuitions, Princeton Review, Kaplan. People gave me a lot of suggestions. A lot of people said, leave law school, you have an economics degree, do MBA, go for a shorter route. People have been saying all kinds of things, but I know that I should be using this time, definitely get some sort of job, but also productively prepare for LSAT. And that's why I'm here, just to look out for resources as to how I can, get back on track again and probably, hopefully pursue law school next year. And yeah, that's my story. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Hamim. Mariah, would you like to share?
So my journey began actually in undergrad. I wasn't a pre-law major, but I was a political science major. And I actually worked on campus in the counseling center at FAMU. So I went to a historically Black college in Florida. Before I got to FAMU, to backtrack a little bit, I always wanted to become a lawyer. I spoke to Steve about it, but like my entire family, well, I mentioned it before, my father's incarcerated. I had a brother incarcerated. All of my uncles on my mom's side have been incarcerated. So I have a long family line of individuals who've been incarcerated. So me and the criminal justice system we kind of have to meet because everyone was kind of like, had their hopes in me becoming a lawyer. So that's why I wanted to pursue law school. So look to move forward, when excuse me, my cousin's here. Before I entered FAMU, I got a political science degree, but I had a lot of family issues. Like I had to take care of my sister, she's diabetic, and I worked on campus full time. And so I didn't really get to pursue law school. So I didn't know what to do. Everyone's going to law school. All of my friends have these high GPAs. I'm struggling in things like English. I'm like, I'm not good enough. And I ended up getting to Dartmouth College for my master's degree. And when I wrote to college, I specifically told them, I really want to enter this college to become a better writer, to get a JD. So I graduated at Dartmouth in 2016. And then from there, it was difficult for me to find a job. I ended up moving back home, dealing with like socioeconomic issues, like not having enough like room to like even sleep, and babysitting and taking care of like other people, everyone but myself. So recently I decided like I want to pick myself up on my bootstraps and believe in myself a little bit more and stop being so insecure. So I used Google and I found Steve and like YouTube. And I was like, this is something I need to do. And I need to reach out to him. And I need to like, believe in myself, because this has been a dream for me for a very long time. And I actually want to help people who are poor individuals with mental illness, students with disabilities, because I have an invisible disability. And so I didn't do well in English and math and certain things for a reason. In college, and when you can pass the education system in Florida, like easy with a disability, if it's not like severe, right? Because they train you for tests. When you get in college, your professors have theories, and you really have to learn how to learn their theory to pass. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you for sharing. Moody, would you like to share?
Hi, my name is Maisha Moody, and I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. As a little girl, I always wanted to be either a teacher or a lawyer, and I'm a first generation college graduate in my family, and so I went off to college at UNR in Nevada, graduated, and then I took the LSAT class, actually my junior year, and I didn't learn much. I think I was balancing too much school, working in the dorms, and then studying for the LSAT. I took the test. I did okay, but I wanted to take it again because I wasn't comfortable with my score to apply, along with everything else that they require you to have. So I ended up not really taking the LSAT again and graduating college, working a year in the dorms after I graduated, and then come back to Vegas, maybe looking for work in the criminal justice field. And so during that time, I couldn't find anything. So I started substitute teaching. And then I was diagnosed with lupus. And so at that time I had like a seizure, and then lupus came. So I kind of was like, in the whim of like, going downhill. And then a year later I caught pneumonia. So then I was bedbound, and then I'm in a wheelchair. So then I have to go to therapy and have to take all these medications, go to doctors and stuff. And so now I'm like, I always wanted to go to law school. I'm like, I really want to go back to law school or go to law school, but I'm not really able right now, all these doctor's appointments and trying to get back to my good health. And so recently, in like the last year, I've been feeling up to myself, less doctor's appointments. My lupus is like in remission. So I'm feeling a lot better. And so I was like, I want to study again and finish what I started. And so I was on Amazon looking for books, and that's where I found Steve on a video talking about the books. And then I signed up for the emails and stuff like that. And now I talk to him through email sometimes and see his daily emails and everything. So I got a couple of books and I'm studying, but I'm kind of like a little lost. I'm kind of familiar with the stuff because I did it before, but I'm still like struggling to keep on track. And that's my story. And I hope to be in law school, hopefully next fall, but we'll see.
Thank you for sharing. Silas, would you like to share?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Steve. So for me, just listening to everybody is like, where do I even start? For me, I've been out of school for a while. I've had senior level management jobs for a while, but I'm always excited about the law school. So, I've been like everybody else searching on YouTube and just trying to find my way around. And that's how I got to your YouTube channel. So, for me, I'm originally from Kenya, in East Africa. I came to school in the US. That was back in 1999. And then from school started working, and I've been working through, got my MBA, been working through in management level, but it's time for me to, go to law school. I've always wanted to do that. So, I would like to go do that as a way of maybe getting into social justice and giving back to the society. So, that is my story, not as flashy as everybody else, but I'm just excited to listen to what people are sharing and how amazing this group is. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing, Silas. Megan, would you like to share?
Hi, everybody. You probably haven't seen my face before, but I'm Megan. I'm an undergrad at UW Milwaukee, and I am currently preparing to take the July LSAT. So it's coming up, and I'm really nervous because I'm taking the flex. but a little bit about me. So I have had the opportunity to live a very privileged life. And I think with everything going on right now, it's really shaken my path and what I've wanted to do. So I work at a financial services firm because when I was younger, we actually lost our house to foreclosure. So I really looked to my mom and saw her struggling with finances. And so going to get my undergrad in finance, I really learned to value the stability of the economy, and I became super fascinated with everything like that. And so my plan was to, go into securities law and antitrust and all of that. But now seeing everything happen has really shaken my beliefs and what I want to do. I still believe in those things, but it's making me question a lot of the path. Do I take some time off? Do I do something different? Do I do something more beneficial? Do I look at constitutional law? Like, everything that I want to do has kind of been challenged a little bit. And so I really just enjoy looking to other perspectives at this time to see if I can get some more insight into what I want to do and maybe develop a better understanding of if I'm doing the right thing and, contemplating all those ethics. I know I'm rambling here, but, there's a lot of things that I'm unsure of at this time because I have lived a very privileged life. And so to me, it's really just comforting to hear other perspectives. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Megan. Jenny, would you like to share?
Hi everyone. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I recently graduated bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm planning on taking the LSAT in August, which I'm still preparing slowly and maturely. But yeah, in terms of my life, I thought that I would never graduate university with my degree because everyone's been telling me, they're always telling me, oh, you should quit university, you don't have the skills or the techniques or any of the aspects of becoming a graduate student. And it kind of burdened me down a lot, where I suffered depression, anxiety, and just didn't feel like wanting to come back to university because of everything that's been going on and stereotypes happening left and right, telling me you should give up or why you want to pursue something that's not your ordeal. So it was hard on me, but after my friends and family supporting me and after having jobs, I slowly, maturely maintained myself to say that, yeah, I maybe life throws curveballs at me, but at the same time, I shouldn't give up on something that people say negative things on me, saying I can't do it, when in fact I can. So after getting a lot of help and a lot of support from people that love me and care for me, kind of steps me back, saying, you know what, I can do this. Anyone can do it, no matter who you are or what age you're at, because at the end of the day, it's what you wanted to do and not what other people say. And after seeing people with protesting and people who have mental illness, I want to go to law school so that way I can help these people find the justice or find the voices so that they can be heard or heard, that you're not alone. Everyone should be equal and not have any stigmas of being scared. So yeah, nothing else to say.
Thank you for sharing, Jenny. Ashley, would you like to share?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Steve, it's been really hard. I mean, not to piggyback off of everyone, because I feel like everyone's story, I identify with at least one point in everyone's story. But I guess I'll start off by saying many times, you can see someone's life from the outside, and then there's certain things from the exterior that look okay, and then when you're inside, it's everything's falling apart, right? So I had a pretty good, education growing up. I was at a private school in New York City for high school. I had that opportunity coming from a low-income background. And while on the exterior, everything looked okay and I was at a great school, my family life was kind of deteriorating. my parents were divorced. There was a lot of instability in the household. I was always back and forth between my mom's house and my dad's house. At one point, I was living out of like cardboard boxes. All my stuff was just packed up, and that's how I lived because I didn't really have a stable place. And there was also, some physical violence, emotional violence, abuse in my household. And so I was in my junior year of high school, and I decided, ultimately, there's a lot of little details and drama behind it, but ultimately I ran away from home. And since I was underage, I actually ended up in foster care. And I spent 6 months in foster care from 17 and a half until I was able to sign myself out at 18. But I didn't graduate from that prestigious high school that I had the privilege to go to. I ended up getting my GED a year later, after when I was supposed to graduate. But I think during that time, it was so easy to just give up and just say, okay, I'm not going to finish high school. I'm not going to go to college. I'm just going to start working. But at that time, I was like, you know what, I need to do this. So I self-studied, did my GED, which is, I don't know if that's a unanimous term across the states or across the world, but that's basically your high school degree. And I decided to go to college, and I started. And I think through all of this, I'm going to graduate undergrad next year, thank God. And now, like, my next step is wanting to pursue law. So I'm just starting now, preparing for the LSAT and, starting the next step of my life. But I think one thing that kind of is persistent on my mind is my timeline, the timeline that I had for myself when I was growing up. Like, oh, I'm going to graduate in 2015. I'm going to, graduate from college 2019. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So I think breaking down that timeline and not getting frustrated with myself and just, moving at the pace that I need to go to for my own sake and for my own mental health, I think has been really important on focusing on that. But Steve, thank you for the invitation, and I'm glad I was able to hear everyone else's stories.
Thank you, Ashley. Princess, would you like to share?
Yeah, so hello family, Mariah. I graduated FAMU undergrad as well. So I am interested in being an attorney, and I say that because this will be career number 3, and I'm about 2 years shy of 40. And so it was quite a change. I felt like my life it kind of blew up last year when I realized that I felt like this was the call. This was I had purpose, moving from the classroom into the law field. So my background, I also relate to some of these experiences that everyone else has had. I grew up in poverty. I was a good student, and I can't say that I didn't have I went to good schools, decent public schools. And I knew that that I had a purpose in something. And so I didn't know really what I wanted to do when I left undergrad. I stopped wanting to be an attorney in undergrad because I was like, it's a little too much work. I'm going to do something else. So shamefully. And then I got an MSW. And so I went to go into social work, clinical social work, and become a therapist. And so I used all of that experience, even though it took a while. It's very life affirming. And, but it also helped me get to this point. I know I'll be able to use all of those skills, my classroom skills and my social work skills, as an attorney, as an advocate for people. I worked in a high school in Florida when I first started teaching, and my kids had, they suffered from every social ill imaginable. You know, when, like, for example, when the time changed and it was darker in the morning, I had kids who couldn't make first block because they couldn't walk through their neighborhoods because it's just too dangerous, you know? And so, and they had to walk their siblings to elementary school first, that kind of thing. And so it was life-changing in so many ways. It also showed me there are different types of poverty. So me growing up in poverty and living in a small city town, and growing up in poverty and violent poverty in a large urban area, they're different things, right? So same trauma, yes, but, you know, apples and oranges, still fruit, but different kinds. So I was able to, it was humbling. It was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And we were all, the group of us that came in at that time, most of us were new teachers. And so we put in heart and soul. So spending all our money on the kids, you know, working 10, 12 hours a day, planning, trying to figure out how to plan, what is this, dealing with the behavior management, learning how to not be mean, but to be firm, and to help these kids see that I'm trying to build a relationship with you. Not out of pity, not out of a guilt trip necessarily, but because let's get in and get this work together, get the work done together. So that experience, and really those examples are small, but here I am now. I teach in a middle school now, but I've seen enough of how the decisions that are made for education, for schools and for educators that are on the front line really are being made by people who don't have the experience, who don't know what it's like to not walk to school, not to make it the first block because they're afraid, right? And who don't know what it's like to go without food and try to make good grades on an empty stomach, have, you know, pests and rats in the basement of a school, so being afraid to eat the school lunch, you know. And so I want to go into educational policy. And so I think sometimes that can come off as, you know, well, you can't make a lot of change at the top. Really, it's there's a lot of bureaucracy, but I want to, hopefully I'll be able to come in and make some focus change, really focus on reading education, comprehension, and English education, because that's my expertise, and then really help states shape summative assessments that are not super high stakes, and have teachers and schools and districts focusing on teaching kids how to test, but still a great benchmark so that they can, you know, go to school to learn and not just go to school to focus on what happens in the springtime when this test that comes up. And I know I can't even read, and I'm like in the 10th grade, but I'm reading on like a 6th grade reading level. And I've got this test coming up that's written 3 and 4 grade levels above 10th grade anyway. And so it's just a vicious cycle for kids. And I'm hopefully I can make a small change, have some ripple effects that will get down to the teachers, help them have a better experience so they can plan a better experience for students, and kids can come to school, and schools can focus on whole child and not just this one summative test. So hopefully all of that makes sense. So thanks for letting me share.
Thanks for sharing, Princess. Well, I'm really blown away by everyone's shares, all your openness and vulnerability, and just the power of your stories. It's really inspiring. And I'm just seeing how much power there is in sharing these stories and in being this vulnerable and open. It's certainly useful for me, and I hope that's useful for all of you too. I'd love to invite everyone, if you'd like, to just take a moment or two to share an insight or a reflection, or share more of your story if you'd like, just for another minute or two since we have the time. Alyssa, would you like to go?
I think tonight I would like to just spend like a few moments sharing how powerful it is hearing other people's stories. I think I personally have a history in my life that when I feel at my lowest, or something is really holding me back from being able to move forward with personal goals and whatnot, looking outward of myself and especially hearing from others, I feel like it equips me way more. And I don't know, I think it, for me personally, I know I have a lot of fear saying like what I just said, especially like thinking like, oh, is this going to go on the internet and like, will I bring my family shame, you know, is something that's a huge fear of mine all the time. And listening to others, I think makes me feel more powerful and safe. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hamim, would you like to share?
Yeah, I would just like to share that during the past few months, I have realized that at times you plan so much, but nothing goes according to your plan. And it's just, especially when you're amongst people, the people around you, what they have planned, they're doing it. So they're going to med school, they're going to law school, but you are just kind of in a stagnant position. And especially in a position like this, when I'm all by myself, my family is overseas. Like my mother, usually being a supportive mother, she usually tells me that I can still give up and just come back, you know, but I just don't want to, because I came here to pursue my dream of being in a legal career in the long run. So it's just, I'm in a paradox. I'm looking for jobs because I want some sort of financial stability, but at the same time, I really want to be intact with my process of going to a law school. I really don't want to leave that, regardless of whoever says whatever. And as I mentioned earlier, people are saying a lot of things to me. They give you opinions. It's good to hear. It's good to, you know, value people's opinions. But at the end of the day, it's very hard. And it's very important to stick to what you want to do. So it has been a pleasure to be here and listen to so many stories of people coming from different walks of life. And I would like to thank Steve for giving me the opportunity to kind of just express myself, because it's very therapeutic, especially given the situation.
Thank you, Hamim. Let me see. Mariah, would you like to share?
I would like to say too, to like anyone, you know, it's not because like I have college loans. I have over $100,000 worth of student loans, and I ended up homeless, and I'm home kind of because I don't have a lease to my name. So I'm living with my family, and we're all poor. And you know, whenever I feel down, I just look at what I already have, and I look at like my degree has my name on it, doesn't have my mom's name on it, doesn't have anybody else's name on it, and so that always motivates me. But I also realized that like I had to figure out what do I prioritize. If it's religion, if it's God, if it's family, when do I want to start a family? Do I want to own a home? You know, all these things are important. So as you know, look in, you know, we're academics, we're smart people, we're overachievers, like hands down, like everyone on this call is, because like that's what keeps us going, our achievements. And so when your achievements are like falling low and your financial situation may not be the best, whether it's immigration or like with me, just like a lot of other things, I have to say, well, let me value family right now. And if family's not working out, let me find something else to value. Let me volunteer. Let me hear someone else's story. So you guys, like, this is so amazing for me. This is like perfect timing, because like you guys are so strong, and it just shows us like how like we need each other, you know, more than we think. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you for sharing, Mariah. Maisha, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Would you like to share?
Okay. I honestly thought that, okay, I graduated 2012. It's 2020. I'm too old. I'm too late. Like I'm alone. But I'm so grateful that I found Steve and then found this group, and nice to meet you guys. And now I feel a lot more motivated to keep going and know that I can do it, that I'm not the only one with the illness, with struggles, with the struggle background growing up. So I'm very grateful that I found you guys, and thank you for your motivation today. And I can't wait to see like your stories, your success stories, if you get in and how far you come along. And I can't wait to share mine in the future. And thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Silas, would you like to share?
Yes, again, nice to hear everybody's story. Like for me, I said I came from Kenya to the US. It was very, very lonely. And so when I feel stories of that sister from Pakistan, I believe, I feel for her, but just hang in there. You're going to make it. Just pursue your dream. For me, my dream has always been to be a lawyer. Although, like I said, I went into MBA and got a job and started working to support my family back in Kenya. But I think it's time for me now also to pursue my own personal dream. And that's why going to law school and trying to be a lawyer, especially in social justice, is a motivation of mine. And I just want to say that I've been so encouraged to hear everybody's story. Sometimes you think people they seem okay, but you don't know what they're going through inside. So what you have shared today, even Steve, you sharing your own personal life, is really a huge encouragement to me and everybody's story. And let's just stay as a family and let's be strong for one another. Thank you.
Thank you, Silas. Megan, would you like to share?
Thank you so much for everyone for sharing. Hearing everyone, it reminds me a lot of why I fell in love with law, the language and the power that freedom of speech has. I remember the first case that I read was about freedom of speech, and just hearing everyone share their stories really reminded me of that, and it resonated with me, the power that language holds and that we all share together. So I just want to say thank you. It was very nice to hear everyone's perspective, and it gave me a lot to think on. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Ashley, would you like to share?
Sure, I guess I'll just share an insight that I've learned along my journey. But I think it's nice to look back over our lives and just look at those moments that might be pain points for us. And I think we've all shared some of that on this call tonight. If you look back and see how that actually opened the door for you, either in a lesson or, a physical door, an opportunity, I think just being open and reflecting on that pain point in that way can really help our outlook. And, for example, me being in foster care, just because I was in foster care, I was able to go to college for free. And I got a full tuition ride, and, they give me money to go to school. So I think you could use that exercise in anything that you've been through. Just look at something that perhaps, like I said, is painful for you. But if you look at it and see how that's given you a unique perspective on life, or how that's really, opened your mind to be more empathetic to other people, there has to be something positive to take out of it. So I guess I'll leave that on your minds. But again, like everyone has said, it's been such a privilege and an honor to be able to speak with you guys and hear your stories. So thank you again for being so vulnerable and open.
Thank you, Ashley. Jenny, would you like to share?
Yeah, I would like to thank everyone sharing for their stories. Like, all your stories were all touching and memorable, because we all, like, every day we all struggle, but at the end of the day, we make our own decisions of what we feel is strong. And, but yeah, like, life does throw a lot of curveballs at us, but at the end of the day, like, we have our struggles, we have our pains, and we have our everyday life struggles. But it doesn't mean that we have to just give up, just not do anything, but rather pick up everything that we have and what we've learned and move on forward, because we're strong enough and we're also motivated that we can do anything. Anything is possible if we can put our minds or hard work and every support that people give you helps you flourish and grow to become a better person. So I'd like to thank everyone who shared your stories, and Steve for giving the opportunity to share our stories, our vulnerabilities, that we're not alone in this world.
Thank you, Jenny. Princess, would you like to share?
Yeah, I think in the same vein with that everyone is speaking to, I think it's important for those of us who choose public service, that we remember the purpose of doing it, and that we stay focused on speaking the truth to power in love, so that we can uncover the darkness, bring those things that are not right, that are evil, whatever you want to call it, bring it to light so that the light can dispel those things. And maybe we can make some crooked things straight, dismantle some things and create something new. And I think that's very important for us because, public service, whether it's teaching or public interest law or, whatever it is, public service is hard and it can be very draining. We've seen, I'm sure you've read things about burnout. So I think it's important as we're going through this journey, even as we go into law school, to remember the goal, and to remember that we have to root out in some way all these things that are causing all of causing all this strife in our society and with humanity. So just want to encourage you all, speak truth to power in love, and we don't have to save the entire world, but whatever space, wherever we land after law school, make waves there.
Thank you, Princess. And thanks to all of you, really. This has been a fantastic session, really exceeded my wildest expectations. You're all inspiring and fantastic people, and please keep in touch. Feel free to reach out if you need anything. I'm here for you all, and let's be here for each other too. Have a good night, everyone, and thanks again. Bye all.
Thank you, Steve. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them, and feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.